Hey guys, another video for our healthcare in Japan playlist. Just first of all, just want to mention a couple of things. First one is the background. So these rice fields have obviously been harvested. The green you can see is new growth. That won't come to anything. It's getting cold now, so that green will grow for a little while and then it'll die. Probably the farmer will burn it off December, January, something like that. The two tall white chimneys you can see in the distance over there is actually a gas electricity plant that works on natural gas. So big ships come in from somewhere and bring tank loads of natural gas to that place, and it produces electricity. The rest of it's just Japan stuff. So another thing I just want to mention first too is I don't like making videos about things that are too close to home. Some of you guys already know that. However, on the Healthcare in Japan playlist there are some videos from a few years ago that were taken from various hospital beds and hospital wards and various things, and we've found since then that those videos have been helpful to some people because they've had similar experiences in their own country, or because they're interested in the healthcare in Japan from the point of view of what it's like when you live here, and if they come and live here, what the healthcare is going to be like, and the treatments and that sort of thing, because it sometimes is a little different to the way they treat patients in other countries. So having qualified that, in this particular case I happen to be the subject, but it's more of a general interest from a Japanese perspective. You'll see what I mean in a minute. So in my annual health check, the city give you a free health check in Japan. You get a letter that comes from City Hall to say you're due for your annual health check, and you can actually go to a variety of clinics. In my case, it happened to be the clinic I usually go to anyway, so it basically just means a free health check. So you go and you get blood test, and your urine test, and just a general health checkup, and then they get the report back and they can tell you about your cholesterol levels and your different levels and things to make sure that you're functioning as you should. So last year when I went for that one, the doctor felt my throat, and he felt a lump down the bottom of my throat and said you should go get that checked, and of course I didn't. So this year when I went again, he felt it again, went, you didn't get that checked, did you? I said no. So he wrote down the name of a clinic, and it turns out that there are 3 groups that are the experts in Japan on thyroid medicine, and there's one group in Tokyo and one group in Nagoya, which is 1 hour from here, that's connected to Nagoya University Hospital, and another group that's in Kyushu. Now of course there's other doctors too that can help you with that sort of stuff as well, but these guys are the experts. That's their specialty. So made an appointment for the one in Nagoya and went in there and had it checked, and they do a blood test, and then they do a scan with a, what do you call that, image resonating, what do you call it, so like a scan like they do for pregnant ladies, and so waited around for an hour, and as usual they're really, clinics in Japan and hospitals in Japan are really efficient. There's not a lot of waiting goes on. They're pretty efficient. You turn up at your assigned time, and it's sort of a bit like the Toyota car factory. Next step, next step, next step, next step, and then they said, okay, you've got to wait an hour for your results. An hour, which is pretty impressive, isn't it? Wait an hour for your results. You can go away if you want to. So we went off, had coffee, came back, and then went into the doctor, and he said I have it's called Hashimoto's disease, and it's just low underactive thyroid basically, and so it doesn't create enough hormones, and then as a result of that the body tries to compensate and it grows a goiter. Now until then the only time I'd heard the word goiter was on an old Seinfeld episode where some old lady went, "You're looking at my goiter, aren't you?" So that was my total knowledge of a goiter. That a goiter is a thing that grows around the thyroid apparently, so it had grown up around the thyroid. So the first part was, and this was a younger doctor. The younger doctors sometimes, well, you can't really generalise, but I've noticed that the younger doctors can be a little bit more, have a bit more of a modern bedside manner, but some of the older guys do too. But this is a younger guy, and So he said two things. First one is Hashimoto's just means that you've got this low hormone thing. So you've got to take hormones forever, basically, to compensate for it. And so I'm healthy. There's nothing wrong with me. I have no other symptoms. So there's nothing wrong with me. So it's just that because the balance is out, it means that that's what's grown this thing. And then also it makes your body work harder to try and compensate, apparently. So if you take hormones tablets every day forever, and they can get the balance right, it's apparently better for your body, and it stops this thing growing and that sort of thing. So that's the first part. So you've got to take these tablets every day, and then go back in a couple of weeks and they measure the level to see if it's gone, because apparently there's no side effects if you can just get to a normal level, but if you take too much of this stuff, it can have negative side effects. So they've got to check your levels and make sure that you don't go too high, or I don't know, I'll start growing hair out of my eyeballs or something. Side effects. So you got to check the level, and then they adjust the amount of medication that you take to try and get it about what it should be, about what normal is. So that's the first step. So okay, that's cool, can do that. And then the second one, he said, and the other thing is, and he showed me on the scan, and there's a little ball in there, 7.5 millimeters, apparently, a little ball in there, and he doesn't like the look of that. So I've got to go back in a couple of weeks, and they're going to take a piece of it. And my wife said, "Does that hurt?" And he said, "Yes, that hurts." Because when doctors and dentists tell you that stuff hurts, it really does, doesn't it? Doctor or dentist tells you it's going to hurt a little bit, it's going to hurt a fair bit, right? So if they tell you it's going to hurt, you can be guaranteed. My experience in Japanese hospital before was, if they say to you, sometimes they'll say "gomen ne," like "I'm sorry," right, before they do something, "gomen ne," and it's like, oh, here we go. And they'll say "ganbare," right, do your best. And if they say "gomen ne," "ganbare," it's going to be horrible. So, and I have a thing too, there's a thing, got to warn you, like anything and everything about Japan, right, and tell you the whole story. I've got to warn you that the Japanese health system is excellent. It really is excellent. But their attitude towards pain management is really conservative. And some of you remember from those previous videos, some of the worst pain I've ever experienced in my life, I experienced in a Japanese hospital. And they're just really conservative about giving you strong pain relief, And I talked to them about it before, all that stuff, and said, look, I'm a big guy and I can take a lot of painkiller and still be awake, And they found that before they gave an operation to me last time. They juiced me up on the stuff that's supposed to make me go to sleep, and I was still looking at them, But they're really conservative. They're really, really conservative. And also the thinking among the healthcare people and also among the Japanese people themselves is, of course, Moshiron, if you go to the dentist or the doctor, of course there will sometimes be pain. And they accept it. They just accept it as of course. And if you mention that you did some procedure and it hurt, of course, And it's just that Japanese thinking, that you just have to endure it. So it's a bit of an old style, here, bite down on this piece of wood style, old style thinking when it comes to pain management. In some of our cultures, a good doctor or a good dentist, does things with no pain, right? The painless dentist. Oh, my dentist is great. You never feel any pain. That's where some of us come from. That's what it's like, isn't it? But not in Japan. It's just like "ganbare, gomen ne, ganbare," and oh no, here we go. So yeah, I've got to go back a couple of weeks. They're going to do that, take a piece of it. They're just checking for cancer, basically, because that's the other thing that can trigger these goiter things, apparently, is cancer. So he just wants to make sure that this little thing that's inside there isn't cancer. So they take a piece of it and analyse it. And he said sometimes that's not effective, or they don't get the right bit of it or something, and they've got to do it again. So I might have to go back a week or two after that and let them do it again. Something to look forward to. But the parts of this, so hopefully out of all that there was something that was interesting, but something else that was really interesting was getting the background on this stuff. In my case, it's just a genetic thing. There are people in my family that have Hashimoto's as well. Incidentally, Hashimoto obviously is Dr. Hashimoto, who was the Japanese doctor who identified it. And so I happen to be in the country that also has one of the highest incidence of thyroid problems and Hashimoto's disease in the world, which means that these specialists are like the specialists, because they're dealing with more cases of it than pretty much any country in the world. The whole conversation with the doctor was all in Japanese, right? So, and I'm not a medical expert, so everything that you're getting here is through the eyes of an unskilled healthcare person, as told by a doctor speaking Japanese. So it's a bit vague, isn't it? But that's what he said. He said that the incidence of thyroid problems and Hashimoto's disease in Japan is the highest in the world, one of the highest in the world or something like that. And the other thing he said was that a lot of it's triggered in a lot of people. It depends on the people, right? In my case, it was just DNA because it's in our family. But for a lot of people, it's actually triggered by their diet. And as you guys know, Japanese people eat a lot of seaweed from when they're really young. We started handing our kids, and it's normal in Japan, they start handing pieces of nori to little kids, really, really little kids. From when they're little, they start to eat nori, they start to eat seaweed. And there's lots of different kinds of seaweed, right? And some of them are high in something that can trigger all this problem with the thyroid and with Hashimoto's and stuff, and quite significantly apparently. So people who eat a lot of a particular type of seaweed, for us coming to Japan and living here as adults, it's not an issue, right? This is just for Japanese people who have eaten particular types of seaweed from when they're really, really young, and they eat it all their lives, and the accumulation of whatever it is in that seaweed can trigger the Hashimoto's and can trigger thyroid problems, and particularly in women, he said. And interestingly, when I was in the waiting room, really effective, beautiful clinics, I mean, just immaculately clean as you can imagine, and really efficient. They've just got it sorted out. So you go in and you hand in your paper and you fill out a form and you sit down and you wait over there, and then they call you and they take you, and then you wait over there and then into a room, and really efficient, And when I looked around, there was about probably 50 or 60 other patients sort of rotating through this system, and all of them were women, all of them. I was the only man in the place, and I hadn't noticed until after I'd talked to him and gone out and sat in the waiting room and looked around. I was like, holy dooly. And because they're rotating through, this is a 3-story clinic, and they're coming in and out of the elevator, and they're coming in and out of examination rooms, and they're moving all around. And everyone was a lady except for me. So it's just a thing. It just seems to be that, Japanese ladies, men too, he didn't say it was only ladies, he said it was just higher incidence of it amongst ladies. So also too, it was a working day. It was a working day, so that might explain why there weren't so many men there. Probably if I went there after hours or on weekends, there might have been some more men, but yeah, mostly ladies. So I thought someone might find that interesting as well, because I said to him, because seaweed's good for your health, isn't it? And that's why Japanese people like to eat it, because it's tasty. They think it's tasty, and it's good for your health. And he said, yeah, that's right. He said, but this is just one of the side effects of some types of seaweed in Japanese people that have eaten it all their lives. So interesting, isn't it? Interesting. Unfortunate that happens to be one of the things that they like that's really, really healthy, happens to trigger this thing. So, but again, not a really big deal, as far as your lifestyle and that sort of thing. It just means you've got to wake up every morning to make these hormone things work, the medication work best. It's best to eat it. No health supplements, no vitamin supplements. They tend to interfere with it apparently. And it's best to take the medication when you first wake up and not eat anything for half an hour afterwards. And apparently that helps it work the best, which really sucks, because some of us, when we first wake up in the morning, need a coffee to get started, right? And then turn on the computer and get straight into YouTube and start doing this stuff. So I've got to do that without coffee for the first 30 minutes. It's harder than it sounds, but other than that, yeah, it's not a big deal. It's not a big deal. So anybody that ends up finding out that you've got the same sort of thing, of course, if you find you've got lumps in your neck, best not to leave it a year. Better to go and get it checked straight away, because it can be a bigger problem. So should be okay. Just got to go find out in a couple of weeks' time what that little mystery is in there. There's a little ball of mystery apparently inside this thing. So, and then as far as that lumpy thing, the problem with them is if they get bigger and bigger, it can start to interfere with your swallowing and your breathing and that sort of thing. Of course, in the past, 100 years ago, people probably just lived with them all their lives. They'd end up with these big things on their necks and just live with it. But apparently, if you get this hormone thing sorted out, it could reduce in size, and at least it shouldn't continue to grow, and it shouldn't it could get softer, he said, which is sort of interesting as well. So it's not huge. You can't sort of see it, but you can feel it. You can feel it. So anyway, look, the topic is supposed to be Japan, and on this playlist it's healthcare in Japan. So hopefully, in amongst all that nonsense, there was some little snippets of useful information. The people who seem to get the most out of the healthcare videos are the people who either live in Japan already and they've only been here a short time, because it's pretty scary at first, because every time you go to a doctor or a dentist or a healthcare person, usually it's in Japanese. Interesting too, on our English Friendly Japan playlist, we actually list doctors and dentists and healthcare professionals on there, psychologists, English friendly ones, we list on there for free, mostly, just to get them on there, because it's life changing. My clinic, the doctor at my local clinic out here can actually speak English really well. He actually spent a few years at an American university studying medicine, so his English is really good, and it's just such a relief, because it is freaky when you first come here and you go to the dentist or the doctor. I remember when I first came here and I went to the dentist, and he looked at something, he looked at a tooth, and he was going around, and my Japanese was still pretty basic, and then I heard him say, "Need to remove it." Right? Need to take it out. And I said, what? What are you going to take out? And it was just, he was cleaning something, and there was something in there he needed to take out. It wasn't the tooth, but it's scary, It's scary. You go to a hospital and spend time in hospital, and everybody's speaking Japanese. And sometimes the procedure, you don't know the Japanese word, some big medical word in Japanese that you don't know. And that's what they're about to do to you. And they'll tell you, we're going to do this to you, and you go, what is that, And it is pretty freaky. So my thinking is, and what I've found from those previous videos is, people who are coming to live in Japan or spend a year in Japan sometime in the future, or even coming here on holidays, or have been here a short time and haven't sort of settled into their health system yet, for those people, sometimes these videos can be a little bit reassuring. Because the underlying thing is that the healthcare in Japan is amazing. Their healthcare system is amazing. That whole day with everything that they did cost 8,000 yen, which is a little bit painful. That's $80, right? Which is a little bit painful, but probably a lot cheaper than it would have been in another country to go see a specialist and have all the tests done and everything else. So their health system is really good. The medication for a month cost $9, so it's 880 yen. So again, don't really want to be spending money on these things at the moment. Not exactly flush with money, but in the big picture, compared with a lot of other countries, it's probably pretty good. It's probably pretty cheap. So the healthcare system is amazingly cheap. Those of you remember, I spent 5 weeks in hospital a few years ago, and it ended up costing about $800 or something. It was something like that. It's ridiculous. The 5 weeks, all these procedures that they did and everything else, all these specialists and stuff. And amazingly cheap, so it is good, and they're really efficient. They tend to be a little bit robotic, they tend to not be really terribly, the bedside manner tends to be not real soft. They tend to be like, that gambare thing, sorry, do your best, tends to be a little bit like that. You have to be fairly stoic. But the quality is amazing. That's the thing that might strike you at first. The dentists and the doctors, when you first see them, are pretty cold, and that can be a bit off-putting at first. But you end up trusting them, because they end up, they usually, the quality of their care and their expertise is excellent. It really is excellent. And once they've done a few things to you, my dentist does things, and I go away and that's it. He's fixed it, and the doctor's the same. Had a few procedures done, and after that, they fixed it. It's done. And that's the feeling you tend to get when we walked out of that place this week. You tend to walk out feeling better, because that they're very professional, switched on, and they really know what they're doing. And so, and there's not a lot of waiting. In some countries like Australia, for example, you can wait weeks or months for non-essential stuff to be done. Whereas here, it's pretty efficient. we need to check this, so we're going to do that now, or we need to check it again, so come back next week. It's pretty efficient. It's pretty good. So overall, the message I'd give you, if you're coming to Japan for a holiday and you're worried about your health, because I know some of the people watch our videos have big health issues. So if you're coming to Japan for a holiday and you're worried about your health and healthcare, don't worry about it. It's really good. And they'll work it out. Even if you can't speak Japanese, they'll help you through it. They usually have little booklets and things that have information in English, or search it on the computer and find what the English word is for you, so they can tell you what it is. So you'll be okay, and if you're coming here to live, just make sure you pay into the healthcare system, because all that stuff I'm talking about being cheap is only because you pay into the healthcare system. So that's one thing. If you come here on holidays and you've got health issues, make sure you get health insurance, because it's only cheap if you pay into the compulsory Japanese health system. So if you're not paying into that, you'll need private health insurance. Okay. So, but overall, yeah, the news is good. It's a good system. It's a really good system. So. Anyway, that's enough of that. If it turns out that other thing's something nasty, or if there's a more interesting story that develops as a result of this, I might make another video on it. But failing that, unless there's something interesting to report, this will be the one and only on this topic. That's more than enough on that topic. Anyway, isn't this lovely? More videos coming soon.